Hi, I finished a debut novel. It came out on the 10th of April, so it's not been out that long. And it's The Margaret Code by Richard Hooton. And this is another book where our main character is an elderly lady. It's very much in the Elizabeth is Missing vein, if you've read that one. Our main character, Margaret, is 89 and she's in early stage of dementia. She's been widowed for a year. Her husband, Arthur, died, and she's still living alone in the house that they shared all their lives. She lives in a street where a lot of the neighbours have lived there the same, who've been long-term neighbours. They've known each other years. And it's one of those streets where everybody knows everybody else, and you've got the sort of busybody and the nosy parker, and this fallings out as you do get. But sadly, she's now in early stage dementia. When her close friend Barbara's murdered, Margaret knows that on the day of Barbara's murder, Barbara said something to her. She is convinced that what Barbara said is important, but she can't remember what it was. And so that is one part of it. You've got sort of little threads running through this. You meet Margaret's daughter, Margaret's daughter Shirley, and her grandson James. And you initially, you find Shirley irritating because she's always nag at her mother. But as the book continues, you can see that this is a daughter who is struggling to cope, not only with her day-to-day life and her own problems, but the constant worry that, has mum switched the gas off? Has mum locked the door? Is mum... The constant worry that is at the back of this daughter's mind. So you might not initially think, she's a bit harsh on her mum, but then you realise that it's worry, it's anxiety. And, you've got, should she put mum in a care home? Has it come to that point? James, her 15-year-old grandson, the relationship between grandson and gran is super. He is so supportive of gran. And he's a vociferous ally. He argues with his parents when the subject of care homes is brought up. He is her staunchest supporter, her best friend. He's there in her corner. And so when the police start looking in the totally wrong direction for the person who murdered Barbara, they've got a suspect in mind, and these two know that it isn't that person. They set out to try and solve the crime. Margaret talks constantly to Arthur. Throughout the book, she's talking to Arthur. And through that, you hear her. You hear her thoughts. You can see what she's thinking. You can see her plan of action. You can see her reasons for doing things. And through these conversations that she has with Arthur, you also learn about her past. And when you learn about her past, the fact that she's got early onset dementia it's so sad considering what her past was. And then she talks about her brother Harry. Well, she doesn't really talk about him because nobody ever talks about Harry. And all these threads, the thread of solving the murder, the thread of her illness, the thread of Harry, everything does knit together. I thought it knitted together perfectly. There are humorous moments, but there are also really sad moments. That Margaret's fear almost when she gets lost. When suddenly she can't remember things, and you've got James's determination to try all sorts of things. You feel as though he's sort of searching the internet to how can he trigger Gran's memory, how can he, because he's trying to find out what Barbara said to Gran as well, so it's, well, why don't you try bring black coffee's good for memory, try to bring, he's all sorts of things like that he keeps bringing in to try and help her. In the afterword, the author says that this is inspired by his own relationship with his grandmother. And the way that Margaret is written, you can tell that this must have been a very good relationship. It's a book that's a bit of a murder mystery, but it's also a book about getting old. And it makes you feel so sad for Margaret as she's struggling to hold on to memories that she knows that aren't going to be there forever. And it also explores the effect of families, the effect on Shirley and her family that Margaret's illness has. So it is not just a murder mystery, it's a little bit more than that. And it's, when a child suddenly has to become the parent. I thought it was an excellent debut. I thought I had a really good time reading that book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed meeting Margaret. And you wish her well in the future. So that is The Margaret Code. The title makes perfect sense when you've read the book, by Richard Hooton. So happy reading. Take care. Bye.